Shout out to Albert, Boris and Stephen for being a part of this video. So, Jackbox games. I've been playing these a ton recently, so I thought it would be good to discuss the party pack I consider to be the best. This is purely off of its selection of games, which I think is the most consistently great in the series. While none of its games make my top 5, it's just overall a great pack, and I would highly recommend this one in particular. This pack is, of course, Jackbox Party Pack 6. Let's dive right into it. The sequel game of this year's pack is of course Trivia Murder Party 2, which is definitely a fan favourite. This is obviously a trivia game where you and your friends are being held hostage at a sinister hotel by your host, known as Redacted. You answer multiple choice questions, and if you get them wrong, you're sent to the killing floor, where you play a variety of minigames. The punishment for losing a minigame is death, but don't worry, you can still answer questions. This continues until there is just one player left alive, and everyone makes a last-ditch attempt to stay alive in the final round, where you race to the door to win the game. Whoever gets out first survives and is therefore the victor. This is a solid time, and I'm glad this game got a sequel, since all of its changes are pretty much objectively improvements. While it's probably my second least played game of the pack, I enjoy myself whenever we get it up, and I'm very happy giving this a solid A tier. Now time for the first original game of the pack, Role Models. Let's hand this one over to my good sir, Stephen.
Hello, my name is Stephen Ison, and I'm here to talk about Role Models. In this game, you and your friends are branded as guinea pigs for an experiment to find out who is what. You are given certain categories to vote on, and once that is decided, you have to figure out which one of your friends is most like blank. For example, let's say your category is historical figures. You would drag your friend's name over the figure you think fits the most. Then the majority vote gives that player a role. This continues until all the roles are decided. There are tiebreakers and minigames when necessary. Overall, a fun game. One of my favorites, in fact. I love the games that revolve around you and your friends, like Fibbage Enough About You before this. However, you must know your friends pretty well, in order to compare them to different things. It is also recommended that you play a category that you would all know, or at least would assume you would know about. Overall, 8 out of 10 for me.
For the third game, we have the gerbiltician on this channel again. Here's Jokeboat, with its biggest fan, Albert Boring.
Jokeboat. This is, in my opinion at least, one of the best games on Jackbox, even if the general consensus says otherwise. Basically, in a nutshell, you get to control a mannequin doll, and you have to come up with a bunch of cheesy jokes on this bizarre cruise ship. And it's important to win because on the final round, the ferry will crash into a rubber ducky, and thus it begins the slow descent into the sea, and only the winner can be rescued. I personally think it's a charming concept, and there's a lot of neat things about it as well. I like the design of the mannequin dolls, first and foremost. Depending on how quickly you manage to enter the game code, you'll be assigned a specific character, so for example, I always try to wait until 3 people are already in, so I can get the character I want. As for the game itself, admittedly, it's kinda limited. First, you just write in a bunch of words for different topics, and these are the words you can then pick for your joke. Afterwards, you get to select one of 3 joke setups, put in one of 3 random words, as well as your own punchline. Admittedly, it does get kinda repetitive, since there aren't a whole lot of templates to pick from, but once you do come up with a good joke, it's the greatest feeling ever, speaking from experience. So yeah, for me personally, this is my favorite game in Party Pack 6, and I would absolutely love a sequel to it.
For the fourth game, we have the one I've played by far the least, and to be honest, I'd say this is the only game in Pack 6 which doesn't quite reach the A tier level for me, that of course being Dictionarium. Besides the absolute GOAT word spud, this is probably the shortest game in Jackbox history. In the game, with up to 8 players, you create a dictionary entry for a word that you make up, so pretty simple. The second round allows players to invent their own synonyms for the word. Finally, you put the word in a sentence in true spelling bee format. There's also a second game mode where you make slang terms, but they're pretty similar. Honestly, you could have just read the wiki article for this game, since I really don't have much to say about it. It's charming and fun, but when you have a party pack with so many unnoticed bangers, this does make it to the bottom of the list, but I'll be generous and let it slide into B tier. Now for my favourite game in the pack, and one of my top 3 games in the entire Jackbox series, Among Us, Push the Button. This game plays off other tropes such as mafia and werewolves by having some players act as imposter aliens blending in with the human crew of a spaceship. Your host, Dottie, allows the crew to take several tests to find out which among you is an alien, including drawing, picking responses to questions, and inserting answers to hypothetical scenarios. The crew take turns leading the tests, but be aware, the aliens have special abilities to hijack either themselves or other players in order to blend in, which creates real strategy. At any time, any player can push the button and decide to eject the exact number of the imposters in the game, but be careful since the vote to push them out has to be unanimous. If any of the aliens are guessed wrong, then the entire alien team wins, since they can survive in space or something. Overall, I absolutely love this game. I've taken notes from YouTuber Silentcock and take notes whenever I play, which actually works out really well and is something I'd highly recommend. I actually slightly prefer this to Among Us, just since the atmosphere is a lot more chill and sophisticated here, though that's not to say it doesn't get rowdy. It just gives you so much to think about, which I always appreciate in games. No questions asked, this is an S-tier Jackbox game, and while I don't necessarily think it deserves a sequel, I think that's a testament to how good the original is. Thank you all so much for watching, and a big thanks to my friends Stephen and Albert Boris for making this possible. Have a good one, guys.